Cory Lavalette from The Athletic and North State Journal covers the Carolina Hurricanes. Might even work in a little Stanley Cup Finals chat here. Why not? Is it unfair for me to refer to Bradley Nadeau, who scored more than 30 goals in his first season of professional hockey after a year at Maine, and Scott Morrow, who we saw a little bit during the course of the season and then in the playoffs? Is it unfair for me to refer to them as assets?
Everyone's an asset. Everyone. This is a business. Absolutely. I think you're absolutely right.
All right, hold on one second. Corey's very low in my ear. Can you hear him fine? You can hear him fine. Okay, so it's just I'm operating with I think just one ear of my headphones. I can hear you enough to want to make sure we're good. Yeah, and I think people lose their minds over when you say assets. They're just assuming that I mean trade them. I mean they have value. Sometimes they have value to you. But if you could turn two assets like that into more of a sure thing, isn't that something the organization should consider?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, I don't think there's been any doubt that the Hurricanes have interest in Mitch Mner. And if you look at where they are on the wing, you know, they've got Andrei Svechnikov, Seth Jarvis, Taylor Hall, Jackson Blake, Logan Stankoven. So that's a whole lot of bodies, and then you add Bradley Nadeau to that. You know, Felix Unger-Sorum is probably a winger and not a center. We'll see what happens with that.
Right.
But you have more bodies for top nine roles than you have space. And if you're going to go and get an elite guy like that, you've got to push somebody out. Now, it's great to have a Jackson Blake on your fourth line, if that's, you know, how stacked your team is. But at the same time, if you can get better elsewhere by moving a Jackson Blake, a Bradley Nadeau, you know, I think it's a no-brainer to do it. And this team has done it over and over again. Look at Florida. You know, you said we're going to talk about the Stanley Cup Final, maybe. Look at Florida. I mean, Eetu Luostarinen was an asset the Hurricanes used to get Vincent Trocheck. You know, you can argue maybe that wasn't, you know, in hindsight, and maybe it wasn't a good move. I still think it was, but but I mean, assets. You know, Nick Waugh was an asset that became Eric Halla, that became Vincent Trocheck. So you know, you only have so much space on your NHL roster. It's okay to let guys marinate in the AHL for a bit, and that's still an option for a Bradley Nadeau. But if you can improve your team, I mean, improve your team. Jeez.
Cory Lavalette is joining us here on the Adam Gold Show at Cory Lav on Twitter. What do you think separated Carolina and Florida ultimately in that series?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like the series could have gone a different way if it hadn't gone so badly to start. If the Hurricanes had played like they did in game, you know, didn't unravel in game one a bit. And man, you know, if you managed to get a win or get a split in those first two games, the series could have gone differently. But I mean, Florida's stacked, right? I mean, they are really good. I just mentioned Luostarinen. You're getting contributions from guys on a level that they didn't produce in the regular season. You know, Luostarinen, you know, somebody said to me on Twitter, you know, Twitter, where great ideas go to be discussed.
Yeah.
Oh, we never should have let go of Luostarinen. But if you look at Luostarinen's regular season numbers, they're not as good as Jesperi Kotkaniemi's regular season numbers, and everybody, you know, wants to ride him out on a pole. But he's producing in the playoffs. He's been really good in the postseason. He's been really good since Brad Marchand came over. And so, you know, when you're getting those contributions down the lineup, you know, we've seen it in the past with Jordan Martinook having a big series or Jesper Fast having a big playoff and things like that. You need that, right? You need those contributions down the lineup to, you know, along with your big guns contributing. I sound like I'm Canadian. Composite
Cory
stick.
Lavalette is joining us here on the Adam Gold Show. In terms of, because you mentioned Mitch Mner, and look, the idea of having a player, a dynamic player, an offensive performer who also takes the defensive side of the puck seriously, because Marner, I saw a list of the best defensive players Not in terms of who's up for the Selke, but the best defensive players among the best offensive players. And Mitch Mner is on that list every year. He's a dynamite defensive player. I'm not entirely sure that's what Carolina needs because they have a lot of players who are more apt to pass than shoot, and Marner is a setup guy. I certainly don't not want Mitch Marner. Don't you think they need to get better at center? I shouldn't lead the witness here, but I think they need to get better at center. What do you think of that?
I mean, I guess the big issue is who do you get at center? Everybody in the NHL wants a right-handed center, and there are not a whole lot of options out there. I floated this at the beginning of last year, and while it's not ideal to have two centers that are maybe 6 feet, Sebastian Aho, and under 6 feet, do you try Seth Jarvis there? I know his shoulder is still wonky, and that could affect that idea, but you have all these wingers, and if you go and get a guy like Mitch Marner, could you let Seth Jarvis drive a line as a center? Is that a possibility? He certainly can handle it defensively. He's not the biggest guy in the world, right. But as Rod Brind'amour's pointed out a million times, Tampa Bay's top line is Braden Point, Nikita Kucherov, and Jake Gensel, and none of those guys are particularly big. You can win, you can be really good with a smaller lines, and it's not like the guys on the wings are necessarily small. Taylor Hall's got size, Svechnikov's got size, little small elsewhere, but I mean, you need to do something there because it's not working. The question is who do you go get? Is John Tavares the answer? Probably not.
Do you think John Tavares wants to play Carolina Hurricanes hockey?
Right. I mean, is Sam Bennett the answer? I think that's a guy that you have to be really, really careful with the kind of contract you offer him because the way he plays, we've seen it year in and year out. Guys like Michael Furland and Andrew Ladd and Kyle Okposo, David Clarkson. Maybe David Clarkson's not the greatest example because he had like one big year and a contract year, but, these big, rugged, forwards that play a heavy game, they tend to age. I mean, Jordan Stahl's a big guy, but he doesn't play physically. He's not, the kind of guy who's running guys through the boards every shift, and he has aged well and will continue to age well, I think. But the Sam Bennett's of the world, I mean, you just wonder where is he going to be in 2 years? Look at Mika Zibanejad, who's not even physical, and already, the wheels are kind of coming off there.
Yeah, by the way, I think Sam Bennett's going to be in Florida in 2 years. I don't see Sam Bennett leaving the Panthers. My guess is they re-sign Bennett for sure. Maybe Aaron Ekblad. I know they have Seth Jones, but heck, I think you could always use two number one right-handed defensemen since you could play a lot of the guys, a ton of minutes anyway. I think they re-sign both of their big free agents, and who knows if they also re-sign Brad Marchand. They'd probably have to jettison something out the other side if they want to keep all three. There have been rumors. Cory Lavalette is joining us here. Real quick, final thing on the Hurricanes. There have been rumors that the Hurricanes are looking to do something with Brent Burns and bring him back, probably a 1-year deal. What are your thoughts on Burns and a fourth year with Carolina, and what else should they be looking at on the blue line?
Well, if you're going to do that, I think it needs to be in a lesser role. I don't think you can continue to play him 22 minutes a night. And, is he willing to accept that? I'm not saying he's a selfish player, but he's a guy who's logged a lot of minutes his whole career. Every player will tell you the more, I don't know if it's just a vehicle of wanting to play more, or if it's actually the truth, but every player will tell you, the more you play, the more you feel into the game, et cetera, et cetera. That's a tough one because, I mean, if you do re-sign him and let's say, they used Sean Walker a bit on the right side with Slavin in key situations, and if that's the move you're going to make and move Sean Walker up, can you play Brent Burns and Shane Gostisbehere together? I don't know. Can you play Brent Burns with a rookie like Alexander Nikishin? I don't know. I think a lot of Jacob Slavin covers a lot of problems, and I'm not saying Brent Burns was a constant problem or anything. I thought he had a good year as a defensive defenseman. He had his mistakes, it happens. But his offense isn't where it was. And we saw, I'm going to write about this for The Athletic this week, but we saw what can happen when Jacob Slavin plays with an elite right-handed defenseman. And I think that, to me, that should be one of the priorities is going and getting someone who can play with him. Or I don't mind Sean Walker getting a shot in that role because I think his offensive numbers this year were a bit of a mirage. I think he could have produced more, especially playing alongside a guy like Slavin who let you roam around a little bit.
Yeah, I think Sean Walker can play up some, but I don't think he's a number one right-handed defenseman. That's, to me, the first thing they should be going. That and a bona fide center. Those, to me, should be the two targets in this offseason. I don't think the head coach wants Seth Jarvis playing the middle. Not that I don't think its size isn't the issue. He just thinks that Jarvis is too effective where he is to lessen that player's ability to impact the game, even if they're looking for a center. Maybe it'll be by necessity down the road, but I don't think that's the way they want it to work out. What is Edmonton must? What I said this earlier. I guess I'm backdooring the question for Cory Lavalette. Based on what we know about Florida and how they change their game when they get a lead, is it that much more important for the Oilers to get the first goal tonight?
Yeah, I mean, I think we learned that in the Carolina series, right? How big of a difference it makes when you score first and how you can stay in the game. I don't even know, and I mentioned this on social media, but I don't know that Florida did a whole lot of instigating after getting a lead in that game. I think that was just Edmonton maybe reacting to some stuff that has happened throughout the series, and just, frustration boiling over, I think. So, but yeah, I mean, that team gets ahead, and their biggest asset is they keep coming. They do not sit back. They come at you. Nothing changes. They are the same gritty, physical, try to score every shift team. They don't like drop back and try to just defend their own net. So yeah, that's important. And everyone kind of wanted to anoint Edmonton as though they're a changed team this year, but to me it looks like the same team to me. Although Jeff Skinner playing tonight, so maybe that's the difference.
It's a two Skinner night for the Edmonton Oilers. Cory Lavalette, North State Journal, and The Athletic. We'll be looking for the piece on Burns.
Yeah, well, I mean, it won't so much be on Burns as what do you do next to Jacob Slavin, but Brent Burns is an option there, so we'll see. We know they have a left-handed guy they really, really like that's going to play a lot of minutes under Slavin this year.
Yeah.
The question becomes who plays next to him.
Final thing, real quick. Do you what are your thoughts on Scott Morrow and his NHL ceiling's not the right word because who knows? Do you think he needs more time in the A?
No, I mean, I don't think so. I mean, he had a really good year in the AHL, and he learned how to play in all situations. I mean, you're thrusting him into a really tough situation, playing him, in a playoff series against Florida. That's tough.
No good.
A tough draw. He looked good when he came up the second time this year. I think, again, the question becomes, where do you fit these guys in? You're not going to play Nikishin and Morrow together unless you're totally want to light Rod Brind'amour's hair on fire and see what happens. But, so then it becomes the question of, does he play with Shane Gostisbehere? Is that the right fit for him? Does he play with Jacob Slavin? I don't think that's the worst fit in the world. The question is, can you play them together 20 minutes as a rookie? I don't think so. But I think that's the kind of player you'd like to see next to Jacob Slavin, an offensive guy that can, that, is willing to go for it a little bit and know that you have a valve behind you that cleans up a lot of your mistakes. But, yeah, I mean, I think there was a lot of, oh my God, this guy can't play. And that's silly. He's still a really good player, but if you're going to go get a good right-handed defenseman, if you're going to go get a right-handed center or any kind of center, that's a guy people are going to ask about. They're not going to trade Nikishin, but they're going to ask about your assets.
Yeah.
Like we started. Look at it. See what we did here? We buttoned this up.
Perfect.
Really nice.
We bookended it. We brought it right back to the assets,
exactly.
which is not a negative. Cory Lavalette, North State Journal and The Athletic, at Cory Lav on Twitter. My friend, I'll talk to you soon. Thank you.
Sounds good, buddy.